On a Saturday in September, I decided to check out Comic-Con Copenhagen. Yes, the event had finally come to Denmark, and it was only like 10 or 15 minutes away by bus for me, making it a super convenient trip. Now, Denmark is a pretty small country, and I didn't have any big expectations for the event. And as you'll see in the footage, it's absolutely dwarfed by the events taking place in the rest of the world, especially America. And one thing you might notice in the video is that the gender split at the event is pretty even for something that is supposedly a comic book convention. But I guess that's because we have a couple of anime conventions, and what seems to be a massive interest in cosplay, which is something that fits perfectly in at Comic-Con. Now, even though I had expected the cosplay to be skewed towards the anime and not so much the traditional superhero stuff, that were quite a lot of Harley Quinn cosplayers, mostly inspired by her designs in the new Suicide Squad movie. There was a massive drop-off of guys cosplaying as Heath Ledger's Joker in favor of Jared Leto's Joker, which actually surprised me quite a bit, because I had the impression that it was universally agreed on that Jared Leto's Joker was kinda lame by comparison. Another thing you saw quite a lot of was Star Wars cosplay. Not only because Star Wars is really popular at the moment, but because Scandinavia is also home to the 501st Nordic Garrison, a group of 240 cosplayers, largely dressing up as stormtroopers and imperial officers, as well as a ton of other characters from the Star Wars universe. They primarily show up for various charity events and all seem absolutely awesome. Despite being named Comic-Con, there was a surprising lack of actual comic books there. It was mostly just figurines and cosplay stuff and board games, and of course video games, which actually was the reason why I wanted to go to the event in the first place. The first thing I went there to check out was PlayStation VR. I had booked an appointment for it, and I was absolutely blown away. Maybe it's because it was my first real VR experience. I've only really tried Google Cardboard and Gear VR before, but in those experiences it kind of feel like you are wearing horse blinders or something, looking through a window and generally not being as present as you were in this. I played the London Heist demo, the one where you get to shoot an Uzi out of a moving van, while a massive bald guy next to you yells at you to shoot at the tires, and it was really cool. You could fiddle around with the radio, you can pick up soda cans and throw them around the cabin, and you can also open the car door and shoot back at enemies coming from behind you. And that really tricked my mind. I really felt that there was a kind of sense of danger, that if I leaned out too far I would fall down on the road, and that was cool. I'm really hyped for the PlayStation VR stuff, and I've been so for months. The second thing I checked out was a non-playable demo of Mafia 3. Now, as you can see here, this really pales in comparison to the booths at the major events, where they build custom sets and have performers and jazz musicians. This was just 4 walls and a lady with a popcorn maker outside, and inside it looked a bit like a cinema with a couple of toy guns plastered on the wall and 4 monitors showing off the 17-minute demo that they also displayed at Gamescom. I will say that the game itself does seem to have a lot of style. I know a lot of people who are upset that you can't play as Italian mobsters in this one, but I think the late 60s blaxploitation setting looks very cool, so I'm looking forward to playing it for myself. Ubisoft had a pretty large presence there, mainly with their Just Dance stage, which constantly seemed to attract new attendees. You could also try Steep and South Park Fractured But Whole, which I didn't get to try, even though they have brought the Smell-O-Vision there, which is their sort of jokey VR headset that you put on your nose. They also brought out For Honor, which you could try out, but I kinda had enough of that from just playing the beta. And of course they also had Watch Dogs 2, which supposedly had some kind of stage showing, which I missed out on. Surprisingly enough, Konami was there as well, or at least they had a single wall with the Konami logo on it, and then a couple of screens where you can play the new PES. Yes, if there's anything you can count on in the gaming landscape in Denmark, it's 2 things. It's football games, either PES or FIFA, and then it's Counter-Strike. There was a couple of PC companies and esports companies there. I don't really follow Counter-Strike anymore, so I don't really know if there was any kind of tournament going on, but it certainly looked like it. Since it's late 2016, things have slowed down a lot with Nintendo, and even though they had a booth there, they only really showed off some trailers for Pokemon. I think there was a Mario Party or something on 3DS, and they also brought out Pokken Tournament, which I think they might have had some sort of competition revolving around. Microsoft also had a booth there, showing off new releases such as Forza 3, as well as demos for upcoming games like the new Dead Rising game and Gears of War 4. Gears of 4. I actually tried out Gears of 4, and I want to say I'm cautiously optimistic about that game. It feels exactly like the old games. I hid behind cover and I sawed some dude in half with a chainsaw. So yeah, more of the same, but that's not necessarily bad. I actually like Gears of War a lot, and I think I'm pretty ready for a new one of those games. The last game I lined up to play was Final Fantasy 15. Now the thing about the lines is that they were all really sensible. The thing about Danes is that they are pretty reasonable when it comes to queuing up, and I don't think I stood in line for anything more than 15 or 20 minutes at the absolute maximum. Now Final Fantasy 15 feels great. The more I see and the more I play of that game, the more excited I get for it. I think it's a way they kinda managed to mesh in the interactions with your teammates in a kind of very homogeneous and natural way. I mean, these are not just people running behind you in a line like in old RPGs. They actually stop up and want to talk with you and have comments and interact with the world in different ways. I keep reading off comments from people on the internet who seem very disappointed. It's not like the old Final Fantasy games. But I think the thing with character interactions in your party specifically is one of the few things that really could help bring this genre out of the stalemate that it's sort of been in for a couple of years. There were also two booths selling retro games. Now these were really on either side of the spectrum when it comes to buying and selling games in this retro hobby. The first one was a massive booth by a company from Sweden. Now I'm not normally one to hang out people to dry, but boy, these people. First warning sign when you come there is that they have a massive amount of Nintendo 64 games. I'm not just saying that because I'm not a big fan of the Nintendo 64, but it's currently the most popular system, even though it really only has a handful of quality titles for it, and bringing out so many games made it feel like these were the kind of people who would buy up anything from garage sales and flea markets to try and turn a profit on people who are nostalgic for that system. The final nail in the coffin for these guys were their prices. They were selling refurbished Super Nintendo system at about 990 Swedish krona, which is the same as around 103 euros or 150 American dollars. Here's a picture I snapped of a completely busted up Super Mario Bros. For the Nintendo Entertainment System, which they wanted to sell for 295 Swedish krona, which is the equivalent of 30 euros or 34 American dollars. Now I know haggling is a big part of selling used games, but if you start with prices that high, I'm just not interested. That's simply offensive. However, the other booth, run by a couple of underdogs from Finland, not only had much more reasonable prices, but also just way better games. And not only PAL titles, they had Mega Man 1 through 5 for Famicom and all these cool titles for the Japanese Sega Mega Drive. And I actually ended up buying this complete in box Magic Sword for the Super Famicom, which is sold at 44 euros, but actually knocked down to 40 euros without me even asking. And that comes to about $45, which is a few dollars less than it goes for on eBay. Very reasonable people from a store called Proromatia in Helsinki, Finland. So if you ever go there, do check them out. Finally, there was a lot of really cool figures and toys there. I don't really collect figures because I don't have any spaces to put them, but I almost bought this glow-in-the-dark Robocop just because, you know, it's a glow-in-the-dark Robocop. What I actually did end up buying was one of the Sega Hard Girls, the Sega Mega Drive one specifically, because come on, it's Sega Mega Drive. It's the Sega Mega Drive. Yeah, I felt that justified my purchase as well. But yeah, overall Comic-Con was a really great experience, and I'm already looking forward to next year. Hopefully Nintendo will have some more stuff to show off, and there's always new games coming out, so here's hoping for an absolutely massive show in 2017.